afternoon and welcome to CEC Gurukul lecture. In continuation with the series on economic sociology, in today's lecture we are going to discuss on global inequality and globalization. Now we know that the process of economic process of globalization kind of increase the interactions between nations for trade and economy. Now what is important to understand is, has this process kind of led to the increase in global inequality, or is there a convergence towards egalitarian economic and social relations? Let us try to understand how the global inequality as a concept has become important in a time when the entire world is considered as a unit. So, global interaction among nations has created a scenario where the world resembles a single city, facilitating a permanent marketplace for commodities. So, earlier it was kind of within the nation also there was only trade within say villages or within the state, and once means of communications, technology, internet has expanded, it is literally possible for someone sitting in India to get kind of purchase a good produced in United States or in China. So, therefore, then the world becomes one community. Now, we do not understand inequality only at a national level or at a community level, but since we are all part of a single city, it is important to understand how different nations are placed in their respective position for trade and transactions, and also in terms of understanding the transitions that has taken place over the last few centuries. Now, when we look into the concept of global inequality, it allows individuals to acquire goods produced by land, animal and human labor through monetary transaction, enabling enjoyment of these goods in their own homes. So, the production where it is produced is not of significance. It may be produced in any part of the globe, since there is a possibility to purchase it, every nation can become a consumer. So, the advancement has been brought through the economic process, through increase in trade and transaction, but what is important is to understand that has this advancement brought by globalization, the benefits are equally distributed. Now, equally distributed not only among the nations, but also among individuals placed in or citizens of different nation states. Now, we know that one of the phenomena which has been observed by a number of scholars with this increase in globalization is the rise of the global middle class and global plutocrats. So, in the study conducted by the author, it was found that in 9 out of 10 cases, the obvious beneficiary of globalizations are people from emerging Asian economies, predominantly China, India, Thailand, Vietnam and Indonesia. So, this study is kind of telling us that it is the consumers, the largest chunk of consumers of global product are coming in from Asian countries. Now, they are not only the richest people in this country, because the rich are placed higher in the global income distribution, that is more to the in the graph that we will see, it is individuals are placed in on the right in the graph. There are people around the middle of the distribution in their own countries and in the world too. So, we look into this graph where we see that there is a graphical representation of the entire global inequality, and the graphical presentation is illustrating the relationship between percentage gain in income and original income level, highlighting disparity among various income percentiles globally. So, how much of income, percentage of income increase has happened of among people placed in different nations has been captured through this graph. And it identifies, if we look into the graph, there are 3 points. On the peak we see there is A, B and B is on the down, and then again we see the C going up. So, these 3 points A and B, A, B and C is illustrating income growth disparity. Now, if we look into what the 3 points A, B, C is indicating, we will have a great better understanding of how the income disparity is a global phenomena. Point A represents the median of the global income distribution, where individuals experience the highest real income growth of approximately 80% of the 20-year period. So, this point is on the peak, and that is kind of saying that there is a maximum income growth, and there is a kind of a broad growth. So, growth was not only limited to the median, but extended to individual around the 40th to 60th global percentile, encompassing about 1/5 of the global population. The horizontal axis of the graph represents the global income distribution, ranging from the poorest individual to the wealthiest 1%. The vertical axis indicates cumulative growth in real income from 1988 to 2008, a period marked by significant global economic changes, including the integration of large population from China, the former Soviet Union and India into the world economy. So, that is why is the author using this decade 1988 to 2008, because of the large scale economic transformations taking place. Now, we will look into the categories of income gain. Through the chart, he explains that there are various categories of income gain taking place. The first is the median income gain. The most significant real income gains were observed among individuals at the 50th percentile of the global income distribution, which is referred to as the median. That is point A that we were saying, where 80% of the population has experienced an increase in income. So, the top income gains was the richest individual, especially those in the top 1%, also experienced substantial income gain during this period, and this 1% of the richest or the top income gain is referred at point C. Now, point B refers to the lower middle class gains. Conversely, individual around the 80th percentile saw the lowest income gain. This group primarily consisted of the lower middle class in wealthier nations. So, in their own nation, they are the top class, but when we look into the global scenario, the rich of the wealthiest country kind of fall down to the middle class. This study focuses on the relative percentage gain in real household per capita income measured in 2005 international dollars over a period of 20 years, 1988 to 2008. The analysis is based on different points within the global income distribution, which ranges from the poorest global percentile to the richest global percentile. Now, therefore, this decade, which the two decade period, the 1988 to 2008, is also referred as a high globalization era. This is a period when there was a kind of a large scale transformation taking place, and it also coincided with the fall of the Berlin Wall and the global financial crisis. That is why the period has been taken in for study. This was a period characterized by opening of peripheral market and the ability of the core countries to hire labor from these regions, facilitated by advancement in communication technology. So, the richer countries were able to purchase labor from the countries which were significantly doing badly in the economy, and it kind of added to their advantage because they could pay low wage and get the maximum profit. Point B represents a group of people who are wealthier than those at point A, but have experienced little or no income growth over 20 years. About 3/4 of this group are from old rich countries, including Western Europe, North America, Oceania and Japan. The United States, Japan and Germany dominate this group, particularly those in the lower half of their income distribution. These individuals, referred to as the lower middle class of the rich world, have not been beneficiaries of globalization and have experienced stagnation in real income in the last 2 decades. This highlights the current trajectory of the globalization process, and the trajectory is the Asian poor and middle class are the beneficiaries of globalization and forms the larger chunk of the middle class of the rich world. In 1960, Nobel winning economist Gunnar Myrdal expressed concern that Asian masses struggling to survive on low income would remain trapped in perpetual poverty. So, the entire focus was in terms of decline of income, especially in the countries in the Asian belt. So, the Asian experience was kind of in the 1960s to the 1990s and beginning of 20th century was that it was in the grip of poverty. But later on with the 20th century, the scenario completely changes and the Asian countries' economy started doing well, and it was the West which was in the crisis. So, instead of the Asian drama, we now hear of the East Asian miracle, the Chinese dream and shining India. So, each of these phrases, the Chinese dream or East Asian drama, is indicated that these countries in South Asia were kind of having a large economic boom. So, they were kind of reflecting what was happening parallelly in the Western countries. So, we were talking about American dream and the German economic miracle. So, the fortunes between these two middle classes illustrate the key political questions today. Are the gains of the middle class in Asia related to the loss of the lower middle class in the rich world? So, there is a kind of lot of complexities in understanding the income increase and decline in income inequality. When we look into the concept of global plutocrats, we see that the point C, which was almost on the right side of the curved tops of the graph, it represents the global top 1% of the very rich whose real income increased significantly between 1988 and 2008. These people are considered as winners of globalization because they have been able to reap the maximum benefit and are so absolute in term than the Asian middle class. The global top 1% is mostly made of people from rich economy, with the United States being the largest contributor, making about half of this group. This group has been referred by the author as global plutocrats. So, this global top 1% and the figure of this top 1% is in the 2 decades 1988 to 2008. They experience substantial income growth, benefiting from economic policies and globalization. Notably, a significant portion of this group resides in wealthy countries, with almost 12% of the richest Americans included in the global top 1%. The financial crisis of 2008 led to a substantial halt in this growth, impacting high income earners disproportionately and raising questions about economic stability and equity. So, the post 2008, there is, because of the financial crisis, we will see that there is an income decline. So, the financial crisis resulted in widespread income decline across various demography, including the top 1%, because the financial crisis hit the Western countries more, and it was those who were located on the top who had earned or got the maximum benefit pre 2008 were also impacted by the financial crisis. While the top income remained relatively stable, their growth was insufficient to maintain their prior relative position compared to the global median income, which continued to rise. So, though their income remains stable, but the position in the list of the richer would obviously go down, because there were others who from non-Western countries were experiencing a higher increase in income. So, this phenomena highlights a critical contrast between growing public concern over income inequality and the stagnation of the wealthiest individual income during and after the financial crisis. Now, what was that they were not at their own level, there was almost a fragmentation, that is, the wealth or the income was neither increasing nor it was kind of declining. So, there was a concentration of wealth among the people, and that led to the category of super rich. So, the post crisis period saw wealth becoming concentrated among a small group of ultra wealthy individual, distinct from the broader top 1%. So, the understand the dynamics of the wealth concentration among the super rich or the ultra wealthy class, one must examine data from sources like Forbes billionaire list, which details the financial standing of approximately 1500 individuals who represent a minuscule fraction of the global population. So, this small group is characterized by vastly disproportionate wealth compared to the rest of the top 1%, necessitating a more focused analysis. United States of America significantly contributes to the global top 1%, with 12% of its population occupying this position, representing about half of the entire group. Other advanced countries like Japan, France and United Kingdom show a lower percentage of their populations in this elite category, ranging from 3 to 7%. Contrastingly, emerging economies such as China and India have less than 1% of their population represented in the global top 1%, indicating that wealth concentration is predominantly an issue in established rich country. So, these nations are only not rich, but they are also kind of having the richest population, and therefore, there is a kind of a vicious relation between the wealth of the nation and wealth of the individual, because, and as we already discussed earlier, that your economic growth also depends on the place of your birth. If the economic conditions is conducive, obviously it will increase your profit level, and there is an easy access to everything there, to technology, to economic process, programs and policies, and that leads to the income increase at individual. Now, when we look into say the concept of inequality, we have been talking about income inequality. The other concept is also wealth. So, income versus wealth data has been used in the study of global inequality. So, while income inequality is significant, wealth inequality is even more pronounced, with many people in advanced economy holding zero or negative net wealth. A comprehensive understanding of economic disparity requires focusing on wealth, as it reflects cumulative resources over time, unlike annual income figures. So, wealth is basically what resources, material resources you have been able to procure or purchase, and it is kind of builds on. So, the more income you have, the more wealth it will have, but they can be a kind of an income change over a period of time. Wealth can be for a longer period of time. Forbes billionaire data serves as a valuable resource in analyzing the situation of the super rich, but they are using the income data only. Wealth is considered a stock variable, as it represents accumulated assets at a specific point in time, while income is a flow variable measured annually. So, 1 year annual it could be decline, next year you will kind of increase your income. But if you have been able to build a net wealth, it is not so frequent, it is not, flexibility is less compared to income. So, research indicate that wealth inequality typically exceeds income inequality in most nations, underscoring the need for a careful comparison between these two metrics. The quality of wealth data for the super rich often surpass that of income data, making it more reliable source for understanding their economic status. Various estimates show the income share of the global top 1% rising significantly from 15.7% to 29% after accounting for underreported income and hidden global wealth. Despite the adjustment made to income estimate, they still fall short when compared to the wealth share, which was found to be 46% according to Credit Suisse Research Institute. This divergence in income and wealth concentration illustrates the complexities of global economic dynamics and highlights rising wealth gap. Post 2010, the concentration of wealth has further intensified, driven by robust stock market performance and higher returns on investment for the wealthy. The rising income of the global middle class have somewhat moderated the income growth of the top 1%, leading to contrasting economic experiences between these two groups. Notably, billionaires now control a substantial portion of global wealth, often concentrated in tax haven, which raises concern about economic inequality and its implication for social equity. And then we have understood, say, the top 1% and the super rich, and the other term that the author is using is hyper wealthy. Now, there has been significant growth in the number of hyper wealthy individual and their total wealth indicate. So, the super rich was in terms of the income. The concept of hyper wealthy is in terms of how much of material resources you have been able to accumulate over a period of time, and the total wealth indicates a shift in the global economic landscape, emphasizing the need for continued examination of wealth concentration. The hyper wealthy cohort expanded fivefold from 1987 to 2013, reflecting a dramatic increase in their economic influence. Their total wealth has more than doubled relatively to global GDP, rising from less than 3% to over 6%. This growth signifies a notable trend in the global economy, where wealthy concentration among a tiny elite continues to outpace overall economic growth. So, when we kind to understand the relationship between global inequality and globalization, there are certain dimensions or there are certain fact that we keep in mind, that is that there has been a large scale transformation at the level of income, at the level of wealth concentration, and two phenomena which has been marked over the last few decades is one, that there is the idea of understanding the growth of this middle class, where the wealth has been accumulated and they has been increased. And the second is in terms of understanding the growth of a very small percentage of population which has accumulated the majority of wealth. However, when we look at an international level and we link economy and politics, we see that what is the future with this widening the gap between the rich and the concentration of wealth in the few hand. When examined at an international level, we see that there are certain political dilemmas ahead, and the first dilemma is that China, with its growing economic power, will have to navigate the increasing demand for political participation and democracy from its population. The second dilemma is that rich countries will face the difficult task of managing stagnant growth among their middle class, a problem that could last decades. And why stagnant? Because the middle class population has almost expanded, and therefore the distribution of the income becomes lower. Because you have a lesser population, the chances of this group getting more would be high. So, once this distribution is happening among a larger population, there is also leading to the stagnation. And the third political dilemma is that the rise of the global top 1%, both nationally and internationally, raises the question, will we see a turn towards plutocracy, where the wealthy holds disproportionate power, or will populist movement rise to address the needs of those left behind globalization? So, there are certain major issues being raised in terms of how the wealth is getting diverted to 1%, and globalization kind of has been now understood that it is not leading to equality, rather it is exaggerating the gap, and not only at a nation state but also at a global. So, how do we address inequality? And understand this growing inequality within nations, we need to focus less on taxing current income and more on creating equality in terms of education and capital ownership. The second future steps that can be taken is, we ensure that more people have access to education and capital. We can level the playing field in a more meaningful and sustainable way. So, the richer countries have a better education with more capital are available for individuals to invest. Therefore, the super rich or the hyper wealthy are coming mainly from the richer countries. If their in education in say the developing countries or the low income countries are improved, it could then have equal players or competition, and that would kind of move population nations more closer to egalitarian relation. So, on a global scale, the fastest path to reduce inequality is to help poor countries grow more rapidly, and that is how we need to kind of have a more critical understanding of the relationship between the globalization and global inequality. So, to conclude, we know there is a need to understand the interaction between global and within nation inequality, and this is critical for addressing economic disparities in the coming decades, shaping of policy, discussions and social movement. And that will also help us to understand the transformation that has taken place at economic, political and social level. With this, I come to an end of this lecture. Thank you.